Hello, welcome. I'm Guido Beckmann, I work at Beckhoff, and in the next 30 minutes I would like to take you on a discussion with users and machine experts about their experiences with and expectations on EtherCAT. Let's start and welcome our guest at our virtual roundtable with a short introduction. We have Mr. Jörg Riekenbrauck from Uhlmann Pac-Systeme. He started with Uhlmann as head of development. Today he is head of advanced development and he's responsible for the evaluation and adaptation of new technologies and machine functions. Welcome, Mr. Riekenbrauck.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
Then we have Mr. Uwe Bonin from Kuka Deutschland, formerly known as Kuka Robotics. He joined Kuka as a software developer in 1997 and became then manager for development of drive technology. In this role, he also has been part of the team that decided to use EtherCAT in the robot control in 2006. And as Chief Product Owner Safety, Mr. Bonin is now responsible for the safety technology for all robot families within Kuka. Welcome, Mr. Bonin.
Hello, everybody.
And then we have Martin Rostan from the EtherCAT Technology Group. As the executive director of the ETG, Mr. Rostan was and is responsible for launching, structuring and leading of what is now the world's largest field bus organization with over 6,000 member companies. He, together with his ETG team, established EtherCAT as IEC, ISO and semi-standard. Welcome, Martin.
Hello.
Okay, gentlemen, let's start with our discussion. Maybe we can start with the experiences that you make or made with EtherCAT. Mr. Riekenbrauck, the Uhlmann Group consists of 4 companies. Your subsidiary, the Pac-Systeme or Pac-Systems, just built up a concept line with a new PC-based control system and with EtherCAT, a system bus to evaluate the technology. You have already gained some experience, as far as I know, with EtherCAT in another system, and you are now looking at the results of the concept line. So how does the integration of EtherCAT in combination with a new control system work? Are there special requirements in your machine design?
Let me start with some facts about our machines. We at Uhlmann build packaging machines for the pharmaceutical industry, many blister and cartoning machines. These can run very fast and produce up to 1,300 blister per minute and 500 cartons per minute, packaging up to 1.2 million tablets per hour. I would like to briefly describe our experiences with EtherCAT in 5 points. First point, reliability. The best technical system is worthless if it cannot provide stable runs in production. We tested EtherCAT in some smaller projects in the past and now test it intensively in a complete line project. Up to now, everything was absolutely stable. This is also confirmed by our colleagues of our Uhlmann Group company called Pac-Systems, who are using EtherCAT since its very first introduction in 2003. Second point, availability of modules and migration. EtherCAT has become a worldwide standard for real-time Ethernet field bus with a huge number of available solutions from different vendors. We found everything we need for our machines, modules for all necessary I/O and drive functions in different required sizes and shapes, including IP20 and IP65. In some situations, we wanted to stay with established formally CAN-connected components. These could be also integrated very easily by a CAN interface card and the information be tunneled over Ethernet field bus. Third point, speed and timing. Our standard cycle time is 1 millisecond for I/O and drives. For special condition monitoring applications, we go down to 100 microseconds. We had no problem to realize this with EtherCAT. Fourth point, support of modularization. Our production line has a modular structure for the individual machine functions. Use of EtherCAT connections allows us to minimize the cabling between individual modules very much, a lot of them becoming one cable connected modules. Fifth point, openness and flexibility. For an internal testing function, we intended to use a bigger amount of very cheap electronic pressure sensors. A standard solution would have been very expensive and not suitable for this one-time occasion. So we were able to take an affordable single-board computer and develop a plugin according to our task, which finally were integrated into our EtherCAT network. It could be developed very quickly with available standard parts and additional information from the ETG website. So overall, Mr. Beckmann, we have a very good impression of EtherCAT.
Wow, that sounds impressive. Sounds like a very great evaluation of the technology and 5 very interesting points that you gave us here. Mr. Bonin, in 2006, Kuka decided to use EtherCAT for the new generation of robot controller, known as KRC4. Thus, Kuka was a very early adopter of the EtherCAT technology down to the system level inside your robot control. So you were part of the team that made the decision in that time for EtherCAT. Can you give us some insight how the decision was evaluated and what the expectations for EtherCAT were? I remember one statement from you saying EtherCAT, the PCI bus of the KRC4. What does it mean?
Yeah, so when we started with the development of the KRC4, we had a system with, I think, around 10 different internal bus systems. So that was really hard to handle. And one of the first technical decisions we made where we want to go to standard IT technology and we want to have Ethernet-based communication all over our system. So we looked at every Ethernet-based field bus and finally decided to take EtherCAT. And there were some reasons for that. So we tested every bus. And the first point that was very important for us was performance. So we had the requirement to have a 125 microsecond communication cycle with our drive modules. And that was really easy to do that with EtherCAT. So we have no problems with performance. Then second point was the architecture of our system is based on a PC controller as a main controller of the robot control system. And EtherCAT is especially designed for that. So you can have a standard Ethernet port for the master and then have special EtherCAT devices. And that was exactly the way our controller is working. And now for these PCI, when we started, we used PCI modules for communication. And if you have PCI combined with a real-time system, you can easily get in trouble. So the decision to use EtherCAT made this situation much more easier because we use the EtherCAT bridge technology if we need an alternative field bus, and therefore we don't have any PCI usage in our system at the moment.
Oh, that also sounds very interesting. So that means no PCI slots anymore in your control unit, just an Ethernet port, and then connecting gateway devices for connecting to other field bus systems.
Yes.
Very cool. Okay, thank you. Martin, you're in contact with many people, of course, as your role in the ETG. And you convince many companies to make use of EtherCAT. So what are your experience at ETG? Why do companies decide to use EtherCAT in their devices and systems? Do they care about the communication technology at all?
Well, if we look at the user side, let's face it, most field bus decisions are taken, I'd say, implicitly, not explicitly. The user decides for a supplier for his control system, and whatever that control system supplier gives him is good enough. I mean, if you choose Beckhoff, you get EtherCAT, great choice. Well, if you choose Siemens, you have to live with Profinet. As an EtherCAT technology group, we are, of course, primarily addressing those that have understood that the field bus is the core of the control architecture. Why? Because it's a field bus that decides about the overall performance of your control system. The field bus can slow down your PC-based controller, for instance, or it can make full use of the CPU performance that you can provide. It's also the field bus that decides what kind of components you can choose. And therefore, it's the field bus that decides about the overall cost of your control architecture. And those who have understood that the field bus is the core element of the control architecture, if they evaluate various field buses, they typically end up with choosing EtherCAT. And that's, of course, our goal.
Okay, yeah, and that's, that reflects also the evaluation that the other two speakers told us about in advance. So yes, the communication system does care, yeah. So and people care about it. Coming to another topic, which is functional safety, and so functional safety is an integral and crucial part of a machine. And Mr. Bonin, you are now Chief Product Owner Safety. That sounds great. What is it? What are you doing?
Yeah, so product owner, the job comes from agile development with the Scrum framework. And it's mainly about requirement management. So I'm in contact with various stakeholders, internal and also externally. And I collect requirements and wishes. And then my job is to discuss with the development teams what is the best solution for these requirements and also what are the priorities we want to give them.
Okay, so very deep inside the technology, inside the safety technology. And safety of EtherCAT, which is a protocol defined for EtherCAT, is used in the robot control KRC4 as well as a safety protocol. Can you tell us why or what were the reasons? You know, Kuka is strong in the automotive industry, where Profinet is still very common. So why was not ProfiSafe chosen?
Yeah, actually, if you are the communication master, you can choose the protocol. And in automotive industry, for example, we are not the master; we are a slave, a device in a production line. And of course, we support ProfiSafe as well, but we support it as a device, as a slave. So in these combinations, we are ProfiSafe device. But internally in our control system, we are free to choose the technology that fits the best for us. And once again, we evaluated every possibility. And finally, we came to fail-safe over EtherCAT. What are the reasons? First of all, I think it's really simple. So as far as I know, it's one of the smallest implementations of a safety stack. And one very big advantage is also that the master and the slave stack are widely the same code. So that makes it really easy to implement such communication. Additionally, once again, the topic of performance. So, for example, if you have a cobot, you are dealing with a lot of sensor signals. We have in our LBR EVA 7 axes. That means 7 safe position values and 7 safe torque values in every safety cycle. And we actually never saw a limit with FSOE to communicate that. Yeah. Last but not least, one really big advantage is that FSOE is independent from the communication technology. For example, we use for interconnection of robots a simple UDP connection, and we can easily use FSOE over this connection.
Okay. What I like most is that you say that safety is easy, yeah? Because usually people think that safety is very complex and difficult, and yeah, so that's good to hear. And it seems like your system is quite complete, or are you still missing something for safety of EtherCAT for the system?
No, I think the system itself is complete. What we need additionally is new sensors. So I think the future of robotics will be mainly about integrating sensors. So safety sensors with an FSOE connection would be great because that could be easily integrated.
Oh yeah, that's the old discussion with the sensor manufacturers and vendors for the different safety protocols. That brings me to Martin. Maybe you can say some words about the adoption rate for safety of EtherCAT within ETG or within the world.
Well, of course, it takes much more than just the implementation of a protocol to build a functional safety device. You need the V model for the software development. You need a safety hardware which needs to be evaluated and certified. The protocol itself is only a small part of that. But I think we see the result of providing the full-blown ecosystem for FSOE development within the EtherCAT technology group, ranging from the specification, the test cases, the entire test environment, a one-stop shopping for conformance testing for FSOE and the underlying EtherCAT technology. So all of that seems to have fueled the implementation of FSOE devices by many different vendors. We meanwhile count 43 different vendors that support FSOE devices. That's not as many as standard EtherCAT devices, of course, but to put that into perspective, that's more than twice as many as the second best adopted safety technology out there from our competitors. So I'm very confident that Uwe Bonin will find the sensors with FSOE support in the very near future.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Riekenbrauck, do you have any special requirements for safety within your machine or your machine design?
Yes, there are some special requirements, but I see it more from pharmaceutical packaging. I would like to talk 4 about of them from my point of view, typical pharmaceutical requirements. The first requirement is pharmaceutical safety. This is one of the main requirements for our solution. It means that first, every package contains the right amount of correct products without any defects. Second, that all accompanying documentation like the printing on the package itself or booklets and leaflets inside are correctly printed and contain the right content. Third, everything is produced under defined, validated conditions to guarantee the constant high quality of the final product. And fourth, all information for the documents which may be required by the authorities are provided. To ensure all of that, we have a lot of sensors, code readers, camera systems in our machines, which information also need to be controlled by a reliable, fast field bus. Second requirement, track and trace. Track and trace require the unique identification of every single package. This is done by putting individual barcode or datamatic codes on every saleable unit. The containing information is verified, transferred to central collection data servers, and is used finally to monitor the whole logistic transport chain from the manufacturing shop to the pharmacy. This is done, for example, to prevent the trade of falsified medicine. Actually, there are laws or regulations present in 50 countries all over the world which require technical solutions for that. Integration of the necessary equipment is mandatory for us and needs to be supported by a fast field bus. Third requirement, PIT. PIT means Process Analytical Technology and describes the integration of quality tests into the production process. A lot of quality tests are still done with samples in laboratories, so not every blister is tested. Only samples taken from the machine. Step by step, we try to provide more 100% inline tests, which also require data transport via a capable field bus. Fourth requirement, condition monitoring. EtherCAT allows us to collect much more data from the individual functions and components of the machine than it were possible in the past. These data can be used in big data analysis scenarios, example given use for preventive maintenance or efficiency improving projects. And it also allows us a much better documentation of events which happened during production runs at the machine. This helps us also to provide traceability to the pharmaceutical production, to confirm that everything has happened correctly, or to support analysis in case of deviations. So far about a short overview of special pharmaceutical requirements for our machines from a field bus perspective.
Okay, thank you. So track and trace, condition monitoring, quality assurance, those are requirements coming or having requests for high performance. But for functional safety, are there also additional requirements from your machine design, or is it?
Our line has a lot of servo-driven functions, as well as some functions where we use robots.
Yeah.
We need to guarantee safe operation in production as well as in setup mode according to performance level D. And being able to integrate the safety functions into the same network helps us to reduce necessary cabling a lot. That's the reason why we integrated failsafe over EtherCAT.
Okay, so but the regulatories they do not need to have safety in the meaning of functional safety. They need a lot of documentation and monitoring of the process, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think functional safety is an overall common requirement for every machine which has dangerous functions, and that's the reason why I think it's more a common requirement.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bonin, we talked about the KRC4, which is a nowadays, or the let's say former robot control. The next generation of KRC5 was introduced in July this year already. So has this new generation changed anything regarding the use of the communication system EtherCAT?
Actually, no. So we we really looked in that topic, and even after more than 10 years, we did not found something that fits better to our system. So we decided to stay with EtherCAT in the next generation. So KRC5 will also be based on EtherCAT.
Okay, so same architecture, still no PCI slots or
exactly,
anything like that. Cool. Okay. So let's maybe have a look in the future. Martin, in the technical committee, the ETG has decided to enhance EtherCAT with EtherCAT G and G10, which is 1 gigabit and 10 gigabit data rates. Why and when will EtherCAT G be available? What can we expect?
Well, first of all, 100 megabit EtherCAT as we have it today is the fastest, by far the fastest industrial Ethernet technology, and it will remain by far the fastest industrial Ethernet technology. In typical machine control application scenarios, no gigabit-based competitive technology can come anywhere close to our performance. So it's not lack of performance that makes us go towards gigabit and 10 gigabit data rates, but we see an increasing number of devices that need more bandwidth, not necessarily shorter cycle time, but more bandwidth. More bandwidth than 100 megabit can provide by physical limitations. These are, for instance, cameras with live image streaming, but these are also very advanced mechatronic systems, like, for instance, the Beckhoff explainer or the Beckhoff XTS system. And this is also the first application, the explainer, let's say, flying carpet mechatronic system, which makes use of EtherCAT G even today. So the scaling of EtherCAT to gigabit data rate is fairly simple. But what we will also do is have the so-called branch controller concept. And this branch controller concept allows for two things. It allows one to integrate 100 megabit devices seamlessly into a gigabit backbone. And in doing so with multiple segments, we can now run multiple segments in parallel, which reduces the overall propagation delay of the network. So this brings down the cycle time as well and adds bandwidth also to 100 megabit systems. In other words, we have a seamless step into the future. It's not just a migration path, because EtherCAT G will not replace 100 megabit EtherCAT. It's not the next generation EtherCAT. It's just an enhancement for application which need the additional bandwidth. And it therefore provides a path into the future for more data hungry applications that we will see in the next couple of years.
Oh, that sounds like good news for your ETG members already providing EtherCAT devices, is it? Or do they have to wait for the next generation for EtherCAT G?
No, I also in the future, I see the vast majority of devices using 100 megabit. 100 megabit is the well-proven, very robust physical layer that fits the machine control level perfectly. So I don't see that EtherCAT G will replace 100 megabit EtherCAT at any time. It will just be an enhancement, and because of our full downward compatibility, we can still integrate all 100 megabit devices, even if we decide to go with gigabit, with an EtherCAT G gigabit backbone. So it means that all the upcoming and new devices on 100 megabit today will not be outdated or made obsolete by EtherCAT G, not at all. The 100 megabit will be the predominant physical layer also in the next 20 years.
Okay, that's good to know. Mr. Riekenbrauck, as mentioned before, your company Pac-Systeme is currently evaluating whether EtherCAT to use as a system bus in your new machine generation. Do you have some expectations for the future towards EtherCAT?
Yeah, as already said, we are building our new line in a very modular approach. To get a really strong backbone for these modules, we are looking forward to the complete availability of 1G EtherCAT and 10G EtherCAT. As Mr. Rostan mentioned, this will also allow us to structure our EtherCAT field bus network in different segments. Second point, and this was also already mentioned by Mr. Rostan, providing a wider bandwidth, they will also strongly support the easy and efficient integration of new drive solutions like the XTS system and the Explanar system, which we intend to use for our new line.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Bonin, are you missing something with EtherCAT? What about EtherCAT G for the next robot control?
Yeah, so at the moment, as I mentioned, we are really happy with the solution of EtherCAT, but on the other hand, well, you can never have enough performance. So I like really the idea with the branch concept that Mr. Rostan explained, and that would be a solution that would be interesting for Kuka as well, because we are using standard PCs as a controller, and normally you have at the moment a Gigabit Ethernet connection at every standard PC. So the idea to have a Gigabit connection to the PC and then split these in several lines, that's what I think I really like, because you could imagine that would be a solution for many robots with one controller. Every robot has a 100 megabit line, and the controller itself provides a Gigabit interface.
Okay, so that means it also helps for robot control, actually not inside the controller, because this is still sufficient with 100 megabit as far as I understood.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, time is running. Actually, my colleague gave me one question coming from the audience. So it's a question into the round. So where do you see the limits of EtherCAT? How could they be overcome? Maybe from the user's perspective, are there any limits of EtherCAT? Anything I asked that you are missing, but maybe something?
For us, it's only, it was introduced in 2003, so it seems to be a very stable long-term solution we already have. And in terms of modules and components, I think everything is available. From my point of view, I think the limits at the moment is availability of 1G EtherCAT and 10G EtherCAT, which could be used, because especially with these drive systems, it's necessary to have more lines of EtherCAT to run them, and then it would be good to have this availability. This is for me the strongest limit at the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think we already talked about that. So I think the idea of Gigabit EtherCAT, that will, you will not have limits after that. And the possibility of combination of these 100 megabit technology and Gigabit technology, I think with that solution, we will not run into any limit.
Okay, good to know. Martin, any final statement from you?
Well, I think with over 3,000 registered vendors for EtherCAT devices, we have no limitation with regards to product availability. We have no limitation with number of nodes per network, with 65,000 nodes per segment. We have no limitation in the topology, since we can do line topology without cascaded switches. We can do drop line, star, tree, any topology. The only limitation we may see is that 100 megabit physical layer, and this is the one we're overcoming right now. So even scaling it up to 10 gigabit in the future. So I think we are overcoming any possible limitation that EtherCAT may have today with that enhancement in the future.
Okay, thank you for that. Many thanks to the members of our discussion on our virtual roundtable. Many thanks to the audience outside to be guest today, to be our guest. And I wish you all a great SPS Connect. Stay or get in contact with us and stay healthy, of course. Goodbye.